Honorable Governor, distinguished panel, very good morning. It is really a great honor for BCG to be a knowledge partner for this conference for the last 7 years. And on behalf of BCG team, I really wish to thank Governor for launching the report and the digital benchmarking platform. Over the last 3 years, I have stood on this podium and made a lot of suggestions for a variety of reforms, and I have always moved away feeling very carefully heard. So, Dr. Rajan, thank you very much. You are really leaving a very phenomenal legacy in the industry, and we are really proud and thankful. Since you have said that you have got a few more days left and you are going to fully utilize them, I'm going to still make a few suggestions. I'm going to make a few suggestions for your consideration. And we all know that RBI is such a great institution because it has institutional memory. So whatever gets started is finished at some point in time. So I will really take my chance. So there are 4 areas on which we would like to make some suggestions. Firstly, digital. We all know that in India we sometimes criticize ourselves that we don't look at the positive things often enough. And as I move around through the whole region, through other countries, I realize that there's something very unique about the Indian banking sector, that we have leapfrogged when it comes to digital innovation. We have almost leapfrogged a generation. And there are actually very few advanced economies which can really claim to have the kind of underlying banking infrastructure, online biometric identity for people, possibility to open accounts, without web signature, so on and so forth. There are so many things that have happened over the last few years under your oversight, Dr. Rajan, and we've got over $2 billion of investments coming into the fintech industry. The point now is we have come to a very strong point, and we are starting to notice almost a competition between the regulators of different jurisdictions, different parts of the world, to create the most attractive, most welcoming environment for financial innovation, for fintech innovation. We really need to take the starting point, the strong starting point that we have, and to really build on it. And actually, we are really at the kissing distance of creating an industry which probably will stand out and attract a lot of investment into India, because it is possible to experiment with a lot of things. Already many of you know some of the foreign banks actually take India as the place where they experiment and launch their digital innovations to perfect them before they take elsewhere. And I think more of this can happen. So I think we need to articulate a policy around the regulatory sandbox which allows banks and fintech companies to come together and experiment with new ideas in a controlled environment, in a manner that is, very welcoming and feasible and easy. And I think that really can help us become a leader, a global leader in this space. And of course, I cannot overemphasize the value it has for our country, for reducing the cost of banking, for reducing the risks, for inclusion. So that is one. Second point is about credit. Doing credit in a new way. Obviously, all of us know how much of huge energy of almost every stakeholder, bankers, regulators, industry, huge energy is being consumed by the current crisis of bad debt. And we have no doubt that it's a matter of time that we will cross this challenge. However, we have to find a way to fundamentally enhance and increase the capability of the banking system so that such an issue doesn't occur again. How do we prevent the recurrence? And on that, we've got some suggestions. The issue is that our country is still a poor country and it wants to become rich at a very fast pace, and it has independent institutions, it has very diverse stakeholders with very, very different interest groups, and all of them have to be democratically going together. There is no possibility that risks are going to go away. If anything, risks are going to increase, and the industries to which banks will lend are themselves facing so much of technological disruption that it will be even more difficult for banks to really, take a long-term view on lending. And further, the ecosystem on which the bankers depend, the auditors, the valuers, the financial advisors, there is no real sign that in the next few years suddenly they will become more reliable. They are very strong partners to the banking system, but on many occasions they are not always the most reliable, and it's not going to change. And so what is the banking industry going to do? Is going to complain about it, or is going to do something about it and come together and do something about it? And we believe the banking industry should do something about it. And there are examples in other parts of the world where banks come together as far as commercial credit is concerned and share data. How beautiful is National Payment Corporation of India? It's an entity owned by banking system, has done wonders in creating new possibilities by creating an underlying infrastructure that everybody can use. We believe that Indian banks should come together and create a shared utility where data can be shared on commercial credit. And we don't just mean information bureau type of information just on defaults, but commercial credit can be done when data which is surrogate in nature on payments, on bills, on employee, on management, variety of other operating metrics are shared between banks confidentially, of course, so that they can do the credit in a slightly different manner than what has been done in the past based on financial statements which we all know are not reliable. So that's the second point. How do we use data as the banker's best friend, and how do we create the infrastructure so that it is available to the bankers? And already for the fintech industry, alternate credit is one of the most attractive, most hot area, just building on this. Third area is pricing. Dr. Rajiv, you have talked a lot about pricing. We have talked a lot about, or you've drawn the attention towards the rate transmission in the industry, and so on and so forth. We want to highlight that pricing is a much bigger topic, and this is one area where enough technology and science has not really gone into our banking industry. So, two consequences. One, our industry does not necessarily differentiate between high risk and low risk as far as pricing is concerned. There's always a lot of leakage, there's always a lot of discrepancy. And Indian banking industry is one of the lowest in the world when it comes to actually charging fees from the customers. And we have basically made our customers to believe that paying fees to the bank is a bad thing. We will not pay fees. And that leads to over-dependence upon NII. That means the banking industry performance is very volatile with respect to interest rate changes. But there is a lot of value that is possible by applying more science and more technology to how pricing is done, so that it's scientific, so that it discriminates on the basis of risk. And of course, there is sufficient fee income to the banks, which is charged to the customer for the value that they deliver. So, whenever we talk about pricing, every bank says, but other banks are not doing it, so what are we supposed to do? And I think that's why this is the right platform to raise it. I think the leaders in the banking industry, the larger banks have to come together to change it. I think it's in the interest of everybody once we get the pricing system right. And of course, the transmission also will be much better. And the last thing, sir, is about banking structure, which is obviously on everybody's mind. The resolution of current NPAs and the potential pitfalls of this problem on the banking structure of the country. Here, we in today's in this conference we are going to also bring in BCG partners who actually serve the industry and have the point of view from the industry side also put forth quite powerfully just to provoke this conversation. But our feeling is that many promoters and entrepreneurs in the country are starting to feel under pressure, and they feel that the differentiation between good and bad promoters is not, it's not assured. Good projects and bad projects not assured. Some of these things are just impressions. Some of these things are just a loss of trust in the system that happens, even though you may not necessarily be able to, prove it. But as we all know, economic cycles are more dependent upon sentiments, or as much dependent upon sentiments as facts, and the sentiments are going to create a vicious cycle. We are going to show some data as to how many banks in the industry are not growing at all in credit, while we keep talking about Indian industries doing so well or Indian economy is doing so well. Clearly, there is a lot of opportunity for people to invest, but people are not investing because we have lost the appetite for taking risks because they feel that it is not safe anymore. And what is happening is that many banks are obviously growing at a very rapid pace in the same environment because they are cherry picking, which is any smart bank will do. A number of banks in the middle category are going to get seriously compromised as this process unfolds. And so I think there is complete agreement that where we have come, we had to come. It required certain boldness and courage to clean up the banking system, and it is really an achievement of the industry, of the governor, of the Reserve Bank that we have come where we have come and the government has been supported. But it is like a Chakravyuh. We have come into it, But going out of it will take even more inventiveness, even more boldness. And one of the things that we would like to discuss in this conference is, should it be just left to the banks, or there has to be something more interventionist that is needed to really let the banking system come out at a very rapid pace? Because if it continues for 3 to 4 years, I think it will really have an impact on India's economic growth. The biggest causality of all of this is a number of public sector banks, and we very strongly believe that India needs public sector banks. Public sector banks, bring a much needed balance in the system. They provide the right kind of patient source of long-term capital, and we are going to discuss in this conference how on certain segments, public sector banks have done so well. Financial inclusion and so forth, now we have reached a size where it is really visible, the impact that has been achieved. So we really need them. And this wrong, almost misplaced notion that public sector means 51% stake of the government really has to be challenged if we have to really manage this situation going forward. So those are my 4 points. Dr. Rajan, you announced your decision to not continue for a second term on a Saturday, and many people felt that their weekend was ruined. Mine was also one of them. Thank you very much for your relentless efforts over the last 3 years. And many people are speaking of your legacy in the banking system. I would like to add a personal note here that many young people in the industry felt very inspired by what you did. And we got inspired, including me and many people in BCG and many other friends whom I know, because we can look at country's future with even more positivity, to boldly stand up for our ideas, to act with resolve and convictions that are based on facts, research and logic, and not always on opinions and beliefs. Thank you very much.